Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology Podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
This is the Future Tech Podcast. I'm Alan Thomas, and today I am joined by Cim Bergdahl, CEO and co-founder of BLB Industries. How you doing, Cim?
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Let's jump right into it. What is BLB Industries? Tell us about the company. What are you guys about?
Okay, so we started with the main idea of just building large industrial 3D printers, and that is what we do primarily, because we see that there is a lack of these big additive area manufacturing machines. So we basically started BLB to cover that demand that we see. And we also do a lot of print service on the side. So that is basically all that we do.
And what inspired you to start the company? Were you already in this space, or were you coming into it new, or how?
Actually, we started the company basically from a school project. So it was me and a mate of mine in college, and we thought that, well, we like 3D printers, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of big 3D printers, so it could be a nice profit on the side to make these and perhaps sell them. We never had the real thought of actually making a huge business out of it. It was basically just a small project on the side to perhaps earn a bit more cash on the side. That's how we started. And
so the demand kind of caused the business to grow itself then, I guess.
Yeah, well, we, coming from college and so on, we don't have that much experience regarding, or we did not at least had that much experience regarding handling a business and what it actually meant. So we kind of went with the flow, and it sort of grew.
And so what would you say that the ultimate mission of BLB is?
Well, I would say that we would like to provide or help the customer be provided with a suitable solution, which they thought was not possible. Many customers approach us and with the first initial idea that, well, they did not think that this kind of technology even existed. They had almost always seen small 3D printers and, of course, wondered, why aren't there any large 3D printers? And well, there are a few companies, well, quite not so many, who are doing not the same thing, but still large 3D printers. But other than that, we're very much alone in our field.
So, are there certain industries that are the most suited or best suited for large 3D printers?
I don't think so. We initially, when we went into to make the company and form our business plan, we thought that, this could perhaps be used for automotive, maybe furniture, sort of things like that. But we noticed that for every week that went, we got requests from basically every industry there was. Our first machine was actually sold to a company for cranial implants. So what they were looking for was basically the extruder system that we had developed, where we use granules instead of filament or powder.
And let's talk a little bit about that. Why do you use granules as opposed to, like you said, filament or powder? What's the advantage there?
Yeah, there are plenty of advantages. I would say that the biggest advantage for you is that you reduce the price to a mere fraction. So to begin with, powders or filament is not so cheap to come by. It's actually quite cheap to make, but the companies who make them earn a large profit on just making them. So we, however, only use the standard granules that even Well, basically all other kinds of plastic production use, for example, extrusion or injection molding and so on. So that enables us to also get sort of the same type of qualities that other products are or other companies are looking for in the plastic. We can also achieve. So, for example, if you want an additive with carbon fibers at a very special grade or at a very special rate, then it's possible to alter the compound of the granules to achieve that. If you have a filament, then you basically have maybe one or two different grades with, for example, carbon fiber, because otherwise it's not possible to actually do a very good filament of it. So we really have the possibility to play around with a lot of thermoplastic materials.
And does using granules affect the speed of being able to finish the project?
Definitely. Since we don't have this small wire to print with, we can basically have, I wouldn't say an endless amount, but a very, very much larger amount of plastic at the same time. We actually have one extruder, for example, that can print out about 35 kilos per hour. So that is a lot of plastic per hour, which would not have been possible otherwise.
And so let's talk about what it's like for your clients when they come to you. What is that day one process like as far as getting started with their project? Is it do you sit down and kind of interview them to find out what they need? Is it or just how does that work?
Many customers are very aware of what they want. So they usually come to us with an idea or a very specific project or simply questions. It could be all of them. The bigger companies often know precisely what they want to do, at least in the beginning, when they have not so much control over what they know that we can do. But when they learn more of what we are capable of, they sort of find new ideas. Other companies are more open to already in the beginning and asking us, what do you think the benefits are? What do you think we can do with this? And we try to help in any way we can.
And in putting the company together and going out and getting those initial clients and getting set up, what are some of the challenges that you guys encountered in getting to this point?
Well, since you start from scratch and basically have no references, people don't know who you are. They don't know if it's safe to put money in your company, and purchasing a very large 3D printer it's not cheap. It's a lot of money, so it mostly began with print service, where we made the initial prototype printer for ourselves. We tried for a while to see what market we got most requests from. And we sort of made a lot of prints for other customers. It's much easier for them to buy just a normal print rather than a whole printer. So that's how we usually begin the business. We allow them to print some samples in our printer, and then we go from there.
Okay, so you kind of give them a taste, and then they can pretty much decide whether or not to get on board.
Yeah, precisely.
And so we've how do you find out who are the best people to put on your team for something like this if you're doing something completely new in the space like that?
Well, you don't always know. It's a lot of guessing and hoping. Of course, you have to grow together. Me and my colleagues who started the business together, we basically we did not know each other so well when we started the business. We had ambition, we had hopes and dreams, and that was one of the motivations. And then we sort of learned to grow close, so to speak, and to be more and more efficient. Of course, it's not always a piece of cake, so to speak. So you have to be patient. You have to be open to new ideas and not too stubborn on having right all the time.
Got it. I'm sure that's an ongoing process, right?
It's definitely always an ongoing process.
And so we've talked about some of the challenges, but what are some of the main achievements that come to mind so far? Some of the big wins that BLB has had so far?
Well, we sold our first machine back in 2016. So that was the first really big milestone from us. We finished our first prototype in May 2016, and then we sold the first one in the end of, I think it was October, somewhere along those lines. And then it actually took a whole year until we sold the next one. And now things are really starting rolling. So we will be building 3 new printers, actually, this coming summer. So that has been a great step forward. But the hard part is always to convince customers, large customers in particular, that we are safe to buy from. That's the hardest part.
And when you're building these machines, does that allow for the machines to be customized to that particular client, or are there templates for particular industries, or how does that work?
Well, we try to be open that we are doing customizations, but to a certain degree, we test materials for customers. Certain customers have very specific demands on what materials they would like, and also sometimes they have their own materials that they are developing themselves. Then we're trying to set the parameters for the machine right. We test everything in our prototype printer because we know that if we can do it in the prototype, we can definitely do it in a machine for them. So that's always the first step towards customization, to make sure that their material works for our printer. We customize the software for their needs, and the second step in the customization is the dimensions that they would like on the printer. So we can give them basically any dimension they want, be it a 1 cubic meter machine or a 10 cubic meter machine. It doesn't matter, as long as it's within. Well, it has to be within certain bounds. Of course, it's always an economic point of view. Then we also make sure to give them the sort of extruder that they would like. If they have a very specific need, then we can do a very specific extruder for them. This could be if they have a very special need in terms of the screw that is inside, or the nozzles, or particularly hard plastic needs a stronger motor, for example. So we can do certain modifications there as well. So that's the basic forms of customization that we do.
And so when you're building the machines for your clients, do you ever have instances where they kind of bring you a wish list of things that they're intending to do, and maybe there are certain points where you have to say, well, that might be a little bit too much for this particular type of machine or this particular project, or it just might not be possible?
Yeah, we receive some of that, actually, or a lot of that, I would say. Customers come in and say they want this and that, and it has to be this impossible goal, and it needs to fly on clouds. You know, all of them have their own very, very interesting wishes, and we have to decline a lot of requirements that are just way up there. But many of them are satisfied with that, because then they know, okay, this is what the technology can do, this is what you can do, and they just want to make sure to aim for the stars and at least reach the moon.
Yeah. Now, having said that, I'm sure it's reasonable to expect that eventually the technology probably will catch up to some of these items that they want, though, right?
Yeah, well, we are trying to keep always the development going, and make sure to develop in the kind of direction that we see that most customers are headed. We try not to lay too much focus on one certain customer if that certain customer is not ready to pay for it. Of course, The money is the driving process, and we will certainly go in many different directions depending on where there's profit. But there has to be some limits, of course.
Oh, of course. And for the company, for BLB itself, what does the roadmap look like for you guys over the next 12 to 24 months? What can we expect to see?
Yeah, we have just released a new standardized model. We call it the Box Small. The Box is actually the system that we have released, and it's the scalable system. But the Box Small is the standardized version with a print build volume of 1.5 cubic meters. So we would like to see a slight mass production of this unit. That would be great. Actually, we have a lot of requests. We will be building 3 of them in the coming 6 months, and we'll do a lot of advertisement to show the world that we're actually going for standardized models as well, not just customized. So that will be a great step for us. We're also trying to expand, so we will be doing some expenditure. We will try to maybe go into several countries and seek a lot of distributors. We're already doing that, but I believe that we will be doing that a lot more. So we are seeking in the U.S., for example, and also other parts of Europe and so on. So that's also a big thing, I think, which will be in the coming 12 to 24 months. And
so what's the big takeaway for our listeners? Why would clients or potential clients come to BLB for large 3D printing services as opposed to going somewhere else for just standard size?
Yeah. We try to see our machines in 2 different ways. We try to see them, I would say, first off, as a complementary equipment to maybe help the company do something that is very hard to do today. And for example, if you have small machines and you want to do something very large, you basically have to print a lot of small parts and glue them together, and perhaps you don't have a very strong part, not so good for infrastructure or construction, for example. So we try to emphasize the customer to come to us when they need us. So to complement something that they find very hard today or is maybe impossible for them to do today. So that's the biggest, I think, reason for them supposing to approach us. The second reason would be that they would actually replace something that they have today. We are actually working with a few customers who has bought a machine to replace a production that they currently have because they see so much benefit in this system, especially if it's an automated system. So and this is we can of course also help with.
Right, and so what's the best way to get in contact with you and the company if they want more information?
Yeah, well, the best way would be to visit our website, of course, and give us a mail or give us a call. That would be the best way. There are people who contact us on Facebook, of course, but this is not a prioritized media from our part. We see a bit more seriousness in actual requests from mail and phone, for example. So that would be the best way forward.
Okay, great. Well, Cim, I want to thank you for coming in and sharing all this information about BLB with us, and just thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner of Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.